Welcome to this ultimate presentation preparation guide. I'm going to talk to you how to get ready for your talk in just four simple weeks. But let's get into that. 90% of how well your talk will go determines before the speaker even steps on stage. That's from Somers White. And I truly believe this. Having presented myself and done public speaking, the preparation matters to how you will be perceived and also how well your presentation will go in terms of getting prepared. So what makes a presentation remarkable? Well, obviously the slides and visuals matter, and this is some of my work that you can see on screen that I do for speakers. But what really matters is not just the slides, but it's the slides combined with the visuals, combined with the story and the content, and then making that connection with the audience, an emotional connection. That is what matters. And we'll get into this. So there's 4 key areas to a successful talk. 1 is preparation and practice. 2, presentation structure and story. 3, slide design and visual content, and the presentation delivery as number 4. What you want to do is answer the question, why should your audience care? Because you help them to learn something new in their work or life. That is one reason why they should care. Number 2, you shared a revolutionary concept or idea with them that can, again, change their perception, change their thinking. And you made them feel something and help them to be inspired. That is another reason. But that is a question you should always ask about your slides. Why should they care? And these are a few examples of your possible why. Remember that your presentation isn't about your audience. It's about understanding them. Who are they and can you describe them? How can your ideas, stories shape them as a person or as an audience? What are they thinking about right now? I have a question called what's keeping them up at night? The go to bed question. Can you tap into that? What's on their mind right now? And what's their current industry or life challenge? Preparation and practice is key, as I said before. And here's a simple timeline that I've put together. Week 1 is your idea and audience stage. So that's about thinking about your presentation title, defining your ideal audience and the need, drafting your main ideas and key points on paper. Then you get into week 2, which is developing the content. And I don't start at the desk or computer. Make sure you get a pen and paper out and write down your ideas. Create a detailed outline of your presentation, maybe the 3 or 4 top core concepts. That's what you need to start with. Identify then audience engagement points throughout the presentation. So I'll talk about that a bit later. And then plan out a strong beginning, a strong opening, middle and end, just like any good book. Then you want to create your slides. So you want to choose a consistent color scheme and typography. You want to keep your slides consistent and source the images to the theme and style of your talk. And ensure the visuals mirror with your key points and ideas. And most importantly, keep it simple. And then when we get to week 4, it's about practicing. So you want to rehearse your slides about 3 times through your talk. And also I also think it helps to get your phone out and record what you're saying, just so you can hear yourself and listen it back to like a podcast, so that you can understand where you're going wrong or make any fine tunings to your delivery. And also time your talk. Make sure you're not running over time. If you've been given 30 minutes to present, make sure you don't go over that time, because I know conference organizers appreciate speakers who stick to the schedule. Then the day before, go back through your deck and just run through one more time. Cut any slides that you don't need, or hold back or change the flow of your presentation. Do another dry run, as I said, for just getting a feel for the presentation. Make sure everything's in there as you need. And make sure you have all the equipment packed, such as your clicker, if you have one, or if it's not provided by the event, HDMI adapters, and anything you need to get the presentation working. On the day, find a quiet space and sit and take some full deep breaths for 5 to 10 minutes. I find that helps keep the nervous system regulated. Some people like to listen to motivational music. Others prefer something a bit more calming. It's up to you. And obviously, just so you know, the audience is rooting for you and they want your talk to go well. So even if you're nervous, and even the pro speakers have told me that they get nervous on stage. It's normal, it's human, and there's no need to make an apology for it. When you get to the room where you're going to speak, familiarize yourself with the setting, get used to it, have a look around the room, get comfortable where you're going to be speaking, and talk to the organizers, talk to their team, and make sure you feel comfortable with going on stage. Pro tip, don't have a huge meal before you go on stage. That will definitely not help if you've got a queasy stomach from the anxiety. And make sure you don't drink too much water so you're not having to run to the loo when you're on stage. Every speaker gets nervous, like I said, even the most experienced professionals, so you don't need to worry about it. But here's 3 ways you can reduce your nerves around speaking. Plan your talk in advance, practice and prepare early. Network with attendees before your talk, chat to your audience and get to know them and get a feel for what's on their mind. And as I said before, practice breathing exercise within 30 minutes of going on stage. Give yourself some time to go have a breather outside or get some fresh air. So, presentation, story and structure. The purpose of the storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but give you questions to think upon. That's a quote from Brandon Sanderson, best-selling fantasy author and author of the book Way of Kings. And I really love this. It's questions to think upon, right? We're not just telling a story. We want to try and give our audience questions to think about. And what is the purpose of your talk? Is it to inform? Is it to entertain, persuade, or inspire? You can choose a combination of these or your own ideas, or you could use a mixture of a few of them. So in the first 5 minutes, you've got the beginning. This is where you start with a compelling statement, or a power statement as I call it, or the hook as often people say. But I don't think it's just about getting your audience hooked. It's actually getting them to relate to you in that first 5 minutes. This is key, and it's where the audience retention is highest. Then you've got your middle. This is the main core meat of your presentation. Help them to understand what you're trying to say and what ideas you're getting them to trying to get across. And most importantly, engage with them with a question. You might ask, have you ever thought about this before? Do you agree with me? Have you experienced this before? Those are the key things you can ask to keep engagement high through the middle of the presentation. And then towards the end of the presentation, in the last 30 minutes, you want to end your talk and give people something to think about. How should they feel when you finish your presentation? Make it clear and what they should do next. Here's an example of a classic story structure that I've slightly tweaked from the hero's journey to the hero's quest. I prefer quest rather than journey, because when you're going on an adventure, it's more of a quest. But the hero begins the journey by overcoming a number of challenges and problems along the way, just like in the hero's journey. And they might encounter their first problem or challenge, and this is important to the story and how it progresses. Then they might encounter another problem, such as this wolf, and that might be another key part of the story. But there also can be detours of which can offer different points of perspective, such as going down a warp pipe and collecting some bonus coins in a bonus level. Think about your own story. What detours did you take to get to where you are? It's not a linear path, as sometimes the hero's journey can be made out to be. Then you might encounter another challenge or problem. But what's important is not just about the hero's quest and the hero's story. The villain is as much a part of the story as the hero, and the villain needs its own place within the story. So they're everything the hero is not, and they also have desires and outcomes that affect the story. So in your story, the villain could be some challenge or something you overcame in your life, a personal quest, if you will. And then the princess is obviously in another castle, but is she? The end goal is important. Where did you get to at the end of this quest? And why was it important to the audience? And most importantly, as I said before, why should they care? Here's another classic 3-act story structure, and this one is used all the time in some of the greatest films and movies that you've ever seen. And the reason why it works so well is because we're so used to this setup. We've got act one, the setup. So this is the beginning. What's the inciting incident? What happens? What's the big idea? What is the reason this is happening in the story and why? Then we get act two, the development of the plot. Is there some challenges? And in the way of presentations, I like to have a challenge or problem and then supporting evidence or reason why this is important. That might be stats or data for the audience, Or it might be just some quotes from other influencers or other authors or other people that make that challenge real for the audience. And then finally, you have the resolution of the prop. Act 3, the resolution. What's the key takeaway for your audience? What was resolved and why? And what was the outcome or action? There's another one you could use called nested loops, which is basically a story within a story. It is almost like a nest. So you've got the central idea and the opening story, which then supports a supporting story, followed by the key story to the central theme or idea. This is a good one of expanding. It's kind of like the inception of storytelling, a story within a story. And personal stories are the emotional glue that connects your audience to your message. Nancy Duarte, author of Resonate and one of my presentation heroes, said the emotional glue, and that is key. Emotional glue. You need to tie your presentation together by using stories that connect your audience to your message. And you can use alternative story structures. There's lots out there, but using story is key. And here's another deck that I designed for a client of mine where we really built the story into the presentation about mirroring the data with the story. So think billboards. Your slides should be punchy, simple, and to the point. Only show the audience the data that they need to see. And within 30 seconds, your audience must be able to understand your slide. And Gar Reynolds, another person I admire greatly, author of Presentation Zen, said, people are only capable of absorbing a very small amount of material at a time. Therefore, it's counterproductive to throw up a slide with lots of text or complicated diagrams. Each change on the screen should relate to one simple new thought that should be expanded and explained by the presenter. And that's key. One simple idea per slide and then expanded by the presenter. So thanks, Gar, for that gem. Keep it simple and keep it clear. The brain only processes limited information at once, and break that knowledge into simple information for the audience to understand. And in communication, we have this thing called the rule of 3. The rule of 3 is 1. The rule of 3 provides information without overwhelming the audience. It makes it easy for the brain to understand because it's only 3 points of information at a time. And the audience can grasp it easier than putting 6, 7, 8 points on slide. And 3, you can use images, icons, or colors to reinforce the rule of 3. So you could use 3 parrots or 3 circles with 1, 2, 3, just like this slide here. And here's another example how you could use it with some simple shapes and different colors. Again, reinforcing the rule of 3 with different shapes just to show you how you could use your own visual hierarchy to do this. And again, you can see some of the rule of 3 in my own presentation design, and also just how I keep it simple and consistent in terms of the colors and theme of the presentation. When you're thinking about presenting, you could choose different color schemes to represent your theme. So you could use one around ocean or autumn or a mountain sunset. And then maybe your images connect to that color scheme. So for example, if you're using ocean, you could use all ocean inspired images, just like this example of my work here. And again, giving you some more examples of how those images might reinforce your visual consistency with your presentation design. Here's some examples of how you could pull that into the presentation. Note how the images correspond to the color palette. Obviously, I hate bullet points. Most presentation designers do. Death by PowerPoint is bullet points. It's death by bullet points. So alternative bullet points is using numbers or shapes like this, 1, 2, 3, or this, 1, 2, 3. And ending your presentation, you need to give your audience a reason to care. What do you want them to feel? And what's the next step for them to take? Don't end with a thank you slide, give them a reason to connect. So for example, here is a great call to action slide. Hey, I'm this presenter. Here's a reason to connect with me. Here's my website. Scan the QR code, and here's a picture of me to reinforce my personal brand. You can also use the slide sorter in PowerPoint to reorganize your slides and reorder the flow. I recommend using divider slides in between your presentation for key topic changes or idea switches. Where to find great imagery for your presentation? Well, there's Unsplash, which I am a contributor to, and I have over 48 million views on Unsplash. So if you search for any nature-inspired photography from Yorkshire, you'll probably use some of my imagery. So feel free to use it in your projects. Also, there's Plexels, which I'm a big fan of as well. And there's also so much great imagery there. And I'll give you a tip. If you're searching for something around those themes, you could choose, something blue or something red or something autumnal. And that will help you to find more of those images around the theme that you choose. And as I said before, you can go to unsplash.com/Ilya Presents and you can grab some of my stock photography on there that you can use freely. Where to find fonts for your presentation? Well, there's FontShare, which is one of my favorites. And if you go to fontshare.com/pairs, you can actually find already pre-done font options for your presentation. So it's really, really helpful. And there's also Google Fonts, which is one of my favorites for professional looking fonts. And also with the Google Fonts, you can use them for Google Slides as well, which is really, really helpful, just in case you do get requests to use Google Slides for your presentation at a conference. So here's some of my favorites from Google Fonts: Poppins, WorkSense, Railway, Inter, and Liber Baskerville. And why are visuals important? Well, after 72 hours later, the retention rate drops down to 10% for just text alone, whereas with a simple visual and text, it's up to 65%. When you get to your presentation, this is a key pro tip: network with attendees before your talk. Meet a friendly face in the audience, discuss some ideas or themes from your talk, maybe seed something that you're going to talk about in your presentation and see what the reaction is. And you can also tweak your talk still just by talking to attendees. And so why that is important is you can just naturally say in your presentation, hey, I was speaking with Lucy earlier and she agreed that so-and-so, or I talked to Tom and he said about this particular idea. And remember, if you're feeling nervous, it's okay. It happens to everyone. It's natural to feel nervous before a big talk. Even the very, very best presenters still say that they get nervous before speaking. And you're not being judged by the value of what you bring to the audience. You're not being judged, about what you're bringing to the audience is being judged by one and only Seth Godin. And if you haven't read any of Seth's books, please, I implore you to do. He's such a wonderful author and one of my favorites. Take a long, deep breath. You've got this. Remember that the audience want your talk to be successful. They're rooting for you. And here's some of my favorite talks that you could watch and study. Steve Jobs' Macworld keynote from 2007, which is the launch of the iPhone, and Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity? And finally, the talk that made Brené Brown a author and thought leader and jetted her into the stage light was The Power of Vulnerability. Her TED Talk helped her become the thought leader she is today. So have a look at that one. It's really, really good. What to do? These three talks, why they're important: they tell personal stories, they use pauses for emphasis, engagement, and they start with a powerful hook or emotion to grab attention. So the night before your talk, finally finish with this. Have you done your final dry run of your presentation? Have you packed your laptop cable for your projector and slide remote? Have you made a PDF backup of your deck in case technology issues arise? Have you sent the fonts to the conference organizer? And I hope you found this presentation guide helpful. I'm Ilya. I'm a presentation coach and presentation designer based in Yorkshire here in the UK. I've worked for 13 and a half years, worked with best-selling authors and Nobel Prize winning scientists on the TED stage. So if you want to have a successful presentation, feel prepared for your upcoming talk, feel free to get in touch with me about booking a coaching call, or I also do bespoke slide decks for speakers as well. I've worked with TED, Konami, the Countryside Charity, the National Trust, Citrix, Mobisoft, Aquaspark and IATA. And you can also check out my helpful templates and guides, including this one, on my Gumroad store, which there is a link in the description of this video. And if you want to get in touch about a bespoke presentation, feel free to email me as well, and I would happily talk to you about that. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Take care for now.